Hello, and we're back with some of the fluidfi team members. Now, it's really such a pleasure now to bring to the screen our Chief Growth Officer, Torab, who's going to be sharing some insights and also how he came into contact with the project. So, Torab, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Great, Jessica. I'm happy to be here. I know we've done quite a few interviews, and so I'm excited to be part of the team and the project.
I do want to get in touch first of all and just ask you how you first heard about or got involved with fluidfi.
Yeah, it's kind of like in the comic books where everyone has an origin story. So my origin story was I heard Robert on The Defiant with Camila Russo, and the way he talked about banking, there's two things that struck me. Number one is that he knew it really well, and then secondly, he knew what was wrong with it. And I think that just kind of came from him being in the belly of the beast. And so hearing someone that has that much conviction, because I think, the stuff that Robert talks about, we all know it to be true, it's just hard to articulate it. And then secondly, it's hard to figure out, okay, what can I do about it? And so when I heard that, I actually the next day reached out to him on Telegram via the Telegram chat, and he was very open, very responsive. We had some Zoom calls. I met with the team, and I think there was some really good chemistry. And so that's my origin story.
And the rest has been history. So then from that perspective, because you mentioned you met with Robert and you saw that he was very equipped to answer questions on banking and he knew what he was talking about, there must have been another element that really drew you to fluidfi and the concept. And I'm really curious, and I'm sure the community is there. What was that one element, almost like a eureka moment, as it were?
Okay, so the original reason that I got really attracted towards Robert and his message is because I'm Muslim. And so for most Muslims, we try to avoid interest. And as we know, that's the backbone of banking. And so when he had mentioned that there is going to be a Sharia compliant, aka an investment vehicle that Muslims can participate in, my eyes kind of lit up because that is an issue in the global banking industry at large, and just for everyday, normal, not so rich Muslims that want their capital to work for them. And so, part of the reason I joined the team is that I want to make sure that some of our financial products are available for that 1.5 billion people across Earth, which currently aren't really banked in the most efficient way. So that's what really drew me. And then meeting the team and understanding their vision is what made me stay and become a part of the team fully.
Amazing. And I have to agree with you. So I'm also based here in Dubai. In Dubai, there is obviously a lot of kind of Sharia compliant awareness to it. But for some of our viewers that might be all around the world, what kind of elements do you think of fluidfi are really making it so that it is Sharia compliant? And also then on top of that, gives access to billions of people to the advantages that they may not have seen before.
Yeah, okay. So I think the main reason why is because of crypto, right? It's the whole DeFi aspect, right? The decentralized finance. Because before, all you could do is you give the bank your money, they do a bunch of shenanigans, including, giving out loans, and then they take that spread and they give you a measly, I think right now it's like a 0.1 or 0.2%, something like that. Whereas now people can give their capital and we can do liquidity mining, we can do farming. There's just so many more possibilities because what's happening is that hundreds of years of banking are being built in what, like 5 years? Even let's say 5 years. I'll say starting 2017 with crypto kitties, although that's not really DeFi, but we're talking about smart contracts, right?
Yeah.
So seeing all that happen in real time and all those rails being built, I know it's like really cliche, but it's the building the parachute after you jump out of the airplane, and that's kind of what we're seeing. And so I do think there's a lot of opportunity, and people can put their money to work in ways that they just never could before.
Can we get a little bit more background into maybe you and some of your work experience and history before you came to join the fluidfi team?
Absolutely. So I went to UC Berkeley, so I graduated from there. And then I spent some time studying overseas, so I traveled a lot. And I came back and I was actually a professor teaching Arabic, which I learned in college. And then I got into tech sales. And it's funny because I do think that the teaching background helps because all this really is, right? Sales or just anytime you're talking about a product, marketing, whatever you want to call it, it's just education. Because if you truly think you have a good product, you just need to be able to communicate why it's a good product. And that's basically the essence of business, right? A product and getting your message out. So for me, I've been working in Silicon Valley and it has been an interesting transition because I like just full transparency. I took about a 50% salary pay cut to leave my tech job and come to work at Fluid Finance and be part of the team. But I did that happily. Number one, because there's a vision. And then number two, I really do think there's tremendous upside potential, right? And so I will say it's a little bit different when an investor talks about growth because they already have, they secured their bags, as we say, right? So they packed their bags. But for us, we're putting sweat equity in, right? And so I think that when you look at the team and you look at Robert, how he's basically funded this personally this entire time, you see that people don't usually put their money where their mouth is, but in this situation, it's not just their money, but it's their blood, sweat, tears, hard work, time, which in my estimation is more valuable than money. Yeah.
Putting your name to something as well, and you guys have been very forward facing in just advocating this new technology, this new concept, and it's been very well received so far, and I'm really excited for the future of it. How would you summarize it to, say, a random person walking down the street that hasn't yet heard about the concept, or maybe hasn't even heard much about crypto and DeFi?
So it's funny because there's so many different potential use cases, right? So if I'm talking to someone who's not in what we'll call the developed world, their value proposition is very strong in that they can put in whatever currency they're using and they can mint fiat USD or euro or whatever, currency of choice. And number one, that protects them from inflation, right? And then number two, they get to earn on that in that stablecoin, right? So for example, if I am in Turkey, as we know, the lira has taken quite a beating, right? I think it's almost 10 to $1 now, where before it was 6 and before it was around 3, right? So if you're trying to hedge against inflation, you can put your lira in, you can get fiat USD. So that in and of itself is amazing, right? You get to hedge against inflation. And then second, you get to earn in dollars using DeFi on the back end and obviously FluidFi on the front. So there's that use case. I'd say for the people who are crypto native, one of the biggest problems is if I want to get money, let's say to my MetaMask, I have to wire money to an exchange, let's say Coinbase. So I have to wire it there, then I have to get it from Coinbase, wait for the funds to settle, and then send it to MetaMask, and then pay gas to get into whatever DeFi project I want to. And so with Fluid Finance, we're able to skip all those steps. And it's once your money's at Fluid Finance, within literally 30 seconds, you can be farming. And so for me, like I said, like any capital that I would just kind of sit in my bank account, I'm moving all that to Fluid Finance. And, when you talk to our team members, they actually want to use the product. And so that's not always the case. I'm sure you've spoken to a lot of teams and they might say, it's good for thee, but not for me. And so we're definitely not like that. We eat our own cake.
You're getting a piece of the pie you don't want to miss out. And I also like that from your work experience, you have come from Silicon Valley, almost in the sense that maybe Silicon Valley at the time you were there was just not as innovative as the organization that you're working with now. Was that kind of the case? Did you feel like this was something that was really going to be greater than maybe even the Silicon Valley era? A lot of people compare cryptocurrency space to the internet boom in the 90s. Was that kind of your thought process during your move?
Yeah, so before this, I've been working in the mobile industry, right? So looking at apps, but before that, I was working in the CRM industry. And if you know anything about it, it's like 20 something years old and it's pretty tapped out. And so when I was there, I said, I need some, like I'm young, I'm not trying to be in an old man's game. And of course, ironically, I came to banking, although via crypto, right? And then I went to mobile apps and I said, the next frontier is crypto, right? And so I think all of us were just trying to get to the point where we can be the best version of ourselves and really do something impactful, right? And so I do think that the Silicon Valley, those folks are catching up. I think before it was just as investors, like, sure, I'll throw $100,000 into this project or 50,000 because they have so much money. But now people are actually transitioning and pivoting. So that's going to be really interesting, as we saw Meta, or formerly known as Facebook. So we're gonna see how this all unfolds over like the next 5 years. I would say it's going to be very interesting.
You guys have been working around the clock, so I have to give my congratulations and also kind of a thank you for the hard work that you guys have been putting in. So tell us what you've been working on in the past few months and also what's to come as the next step.
So I'll happily take all the praise for the hard work everyone else has been doing. But I think we all have different aspects of it, right? So the dev team's been working really hard, or the tech team, as we call them. For me personally, I've actually been meeting with a lot of different DeFi projects, crypto projects in general, and then some old school institutional banker types. And it's funny because there's different parts of fluidfi that make that light go off in their heads and go, aha, right? To have that eureka moment, as you called it. And so, you know, when I've been talking to them, we're trying to find ways for us to work with one another. And so that's been really interesting because sometimes they come up with ideas that I didn't even think about. And so we're really, you know, it's hard because I can't announce anything until it's official, and then they have to, you know, all, you know, make sure we're all on the up and up. But I promise you, there are some very incredible conversations happening, and that those announcements should come out relatively soon, especially if you're working on the old school institutional banking, you know, time frame. We're moving at lightning speed.
Torab, thank you so much. You've given us great insight into you, the organization, and watch this space. And for everyone that is watching at home, make sure to subscribe to fluidfi if you haven't already, so you don't miss these notifications when they do come out. Thank you so much, Torab, for joining me.